on supplies, sharpen your knives, ready to rise when the sky turns gray. You better know the role you play. I spend my day with the information. I spit it so my people have some inspiration. It's not frustration that you hear when you saying this. It's just the passion that you hear when I'm spraying this. Elders okaying us to take the wheel, so I'ma say what I feel. After I press record, you can no longer afford to let the youth absorb this slave mentality. Sacrifice your baby for a salary.
All right, and we're back again. Peace, everybody. My name is the F.L.O. Xpress, and you are now tuning in to our latest edition of the Xpressionz of Self. This is my little podcast, show, episode, blog. I don't know if they use that word anymore, but this is my platform in which I get to express my thoughts, my views, my experiences about my journey, as well as my experience and my relationship with music, with hip-hop, art, and culture. We'd like to thank you for tuning in, whether you're live or you're catching the video broadcast, which will be uploaded on my YouTube channel. And peace to you. I see that I got family tuning in on my Instagram live right now. We want to give thanks. Anytime we're able to get a pair of eyes or a pair of ears to tune into what we have going on. So today, wow, that's two folks. All right, give thanks. Give thanks. And you're tuning into our live broadcast for the What's Going On. Yo, we need to catch up. Okay, because I'm in your neck of the woods now, and I mean, I'm not saying that like you did something wrong. I'm just saying like I've been around for a little bit, and it's all good, brother. We out here. I'm in Georgia now, and we're heavy on the music and the media. That hasn't stopped. The vision's still going strong. I'm working on releasing a couple projects within the next several weeks, most likely by the end of November, beginning of November, somewhere in between. And I'm going to be doing this podcast thing. That's another way to promote my services. I'm a full-time engineer and a producer, as well as an artist. I'm still emceeing. You in Chicago? Well, my dad's out there. He's actually just coming out from that area to come here. I didn't even plan on making an announcement, but okay. Well, we got a link then, and that'll just be another reason for me to visit out to the Windy City. That's what's up, brother. I know you're doing big things. I know you and the family are growing and building and getting stronger by the day. I'm so proud of you, brother. I've seen some of your work and the progress that you've made, and things are really moving forward in your life. So I salute you, brother. I give thanks for you tuning in. However long you're able to stick around, it's all good. I'm going to be posting the video up on my YouTube channel. Of course. No doubt. Appreciate that. I might have to take you up on that. Nice. No, just kidding. But definitely look forward to visiting and just seeing you again face to face. I know it's been a minute, brother. It's been a minute. But it's good that you was able to, tune in and, catch me live. So that was a little bit of a pleasant surprise there. I don't plan on being up here all night. I got things to do, but this particular episode, I wanted to talk about the subject of, and it's kind of broad. I know we're just kind of going to touch on broad subjects and then narrow down as things progress in the building of this particular platform. But today's topic is going to be about the subject of manhood in hip-hop. What is that? How does that apply? What's the correlation? How is that being done correctly? How's that being done incorrectly? Because a lot of us are more familiar with the incorrect and uncorrect. Yeah, I'm just going to say it. The incorrect examples of manhood being shown in hip-hop, and how, what are some of the positive examples that we've seen and that we can reference, and what's the importance of that? Because again, hip hop is such a galvanizing universal, you know, vibration language platform. Like it's way more than just music. First of all, it's a culture. You know what I'm saying? It was an idea that branched out to a culture and a system, a platform of expression, which then also became a genre of its own. And then that became a business, a corporation, a global influence that has stood the test of time. It's very encompassing because I think I was overhearing a conversation, or I was in a conversation where I heard someone say, well, hip hop is the only genre that can encompass all other genres of music and it still be its own, be within its definition. And that's very powerful. If you really think about it, I don't know if you really had the time to think about the influence and the power and the impact that hip-hop culture, hip-hop media, hip-hop art, hip-hop music has had on the world. Because most of us are more so familiar with what's going on here in, the United States, United Snakes of America, with 3 Ks. But, it goes far beyond that. I mean, if you go to Brazil, if you go to, West Africa, South Africa, if you go to Europe, Spain, Germany, hip-hop is hard in Europe. Like, France, the hip-hop real heavy out there in Europe. Netherlands, Germany, Spain, what are some other areas? But I mean, Russia. I'm telling you, you could think of just about any country on the planet you could think of. There's some form of hip hop and some form of fashion being expressed, being shown, put on display. Italy, I was surprised. There's some kids out in Italy getting down and busy with the drill rap. Like, I'm telling you, like, I can't even front on this drill rap. Like, I know a lot of artists are using it to, transmit destructive messages, but I think just like any other style, trap, boom bap, lo-fi, whatever little sub-genre of hip-hop, it can be used, those little particular sub-genres, those niches within the art form can be used to, lift up the vibration as well. So I don't dismiss drill rap. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because the vibration and the bounce, it's got a very distinctive, catchy, infectious bounce, drill rap. So that's something that as a producer, I've given consideration and exploring and being able to express. I don't want to be so much like trying to catch up with all the latest trends, because next 5 years is going to be something else to, be the next new thing. So it's like, as an artist, as a producer, as a creative, it's important to stay true to your artistic and creative identity, your own personal identity. However, doesn't mean you can't branch out, can't experiment. Miles Davis is a great example, musician-wise, of someone who was never afraid to experiment and push the limits, push the envelope of their limits and their creative abilities. And that's part of what makes them so legendary, part of their timeless legend to this day, was never being afraid. Of course, him not being broke too, he didn't have to, but that's another thing, leverage yourself financially to a point where you don't have to depend on just one particular source of income, because that's what kind of gave him a leg up over a lot of other musicians, was that he was able to manage his finances well enough between him and his family. I'm not sure exactly what his background was financially, but he was in a position, whether he put himself there or he had folks to help him out, but he was in a position financially where he didn't have to just play it safe with his music in order to eat. You know what I'm saying? He could say, hey, I'm going to do something. I don't know if the people are going to like this or not, but I want to test my limits. I want to push my limits, push those boundaries. So, that's no different than what you see in hip hop today. A lot of great musicians were very experimental. They weren't one dimensional. They didn't just stick to one formula for success. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but never being afraid to try. If you feel that inspired to do something different, as an artist, I encourage you at least give it one, give it one sincere, genuine, wholehearted effort to make it work, and then see the results of that. Try it until you know for sure that it doesn't work for you, or it's not getting you the results that you're looking for. You're not really feeling it, or didn't come out the way it intended. And then, okay, what you can and can't do. But if you're that inspired to really want to do something, do it. Do it. What is there, as opposed to looking back and say, well, what if I tried this? Or I'm telling you, that'll bite you in the bottom harder than you actually, because you never know. Doing something you've never done before, but you're so inspired to do, could be very well the thing that changes the trajectory of your career or your life in a way you would have never imagined. So, for sure. Oh yeah, Odyssey's my man. I know he from around my neck of the woods. Cause I was born in Banneker City, born in DC. I'm not sure if he was born in DC, but I know he's Southern Maryland, DC, PG County. I know that area is all linked it. But yeah, Odyssey's my dude. And you know what? That's interesting you mentioned him, because I know that he's definitely an example of someone who thinks outside the box. I could be more familiar with his catalog. I haven't heard any of his whole albums front to back, but I've heard quite a bunch of stuff that he's made over the years. Brother is very talented, because I know he writes, he rhymes, but he makes his own beats too. He also produces as well. So shout out to Odyssey. Shout out to Thorough MCs from Banneker City, DC. Hey, what up, cuz? What's going on? Just doing my my little podcast or whatever. So, I'll probably be working on a new episode probably every week, every other week or so, every 7 days. So today we getting into the subject of manhood and hip hop. So, for anybody popping in on my Instagram live, it's cool. You can stay as long as you can. I'm going to be airing this out. I'm actually taping this for me to upload to my YouTube channel. I just updated the link on my bio too. So the link on my bio should take you right to the playlist for all of my podcast episodes that I have uploaded. I may even pull some that I had out of the archives. I think it's just audio that I was recording at the time, just kind of really getting a feel for how I wanted to do this. And this is a continuous work in progress. I will be adding and enhancing and building and expanding and growing upon this particular idea of a show. This is just me to connect with, my supporters, those who have been supporting and those who, will be supporting in the future. Just a way of sharing me to you, my thoughts. I'm not always going to put out a mixtape every week, every month. But this is a way for me to express myself, my thoughts, and things like that. I've had personal, private conversations with folks about subjects like these, and, folks have given me a lot of positive feedback as far as just giving me praise about how I articulate and how I have a interesting perspective. It's thoughtful. It's, very well articulated. It's, intellectual, so to speak. But the thing about it is, it's just really, this is just what I see and how I see it and how I want it to be seen. Really, as far as hip hop, because we got to get in front of the narrative. Like, hip hop is our creation. This is what we made. This came out. Hip hop came from the hood. You know what I'm saying? So, and I can relate to the hood. I ain't grew up in the projects, but I know what it's like to struggle, had to go without, or just to barely get by. And, that's very much interwoven into the essence of hip hop, being resourceful and being able to create something great out of little crumbs and pieces and parts. I'm not the one to just take it sitting down. This wonderful creation that's made by the community for the community, for our upliftment, our growth, to be exploited by, greedy corporations. And, them not giving anything back that they gained from something that they had nothing to do with in the first place. I mean, I give a lot of these companies credit. They invested in artists and took chances to invest their resources into our creative vision, to make it work, to get it to a level where it is dominating corporate America, dominating global influence. However, we understand that those who are most responsible with creating and doing the work to make this happen don't get the most recognition, don't get the most benefit when it comes to this. And in fact, this very platform, this art form that we created for our upliftment has been used for our destruction and demise. Not only just figuratively in terms of like how it's destroying our families, our communities, our minds, our children's minds, but also destroying our lives itself. Artists, dying broke, dying strung out, being burnt out, and then, being just dying, period. Their lifetime being cut way short before it's supposed to, being exploited for profit, and then being cut short, as I've discussed in previous episodes. So that's part of the reason why I make this podcast. It's my way of, it's counterintelligence, you could say, to the corporate agenda to exploit this wonderful culture. We're not saying, hey, if you want to, join with us and invest and, use whatever opportunities for business growth you can, that's fine, but split the pie a little more evenly, please. That's all. If we putting out the work, we should be getting publishing, we should be getting royalties, we should be getting our fair share percentages on ownership, you know what I'm saying? So that's my kind of like my battle cry there. But yeah, manhood and hip hop, and this is another area where I feel like the culture of hip hop is being used to destroy our families, destroy our communities, because there's oftentimes you see a lot of examples. You've seen a lot of examples in recent years, over the past 10, 15 years, I'd say for sure, where you've seen examples. And I don't want to just talk about the negative, because I think we've been very well aware of the negative examples of manhood and hip hop. But, it really goes back to what you've seen. It's what you've seen has been more recent, but what you've been hearing as far as, toxic manhood or really the lack of manhood in hip hop really goes back to the 90s. It goes back to the early 90s, because when, before gangster rap became gangster rap, the organic origins of gangster rap was really known as reality rap. And, the likes of Ice-T were one of those pioneering examples of reality rap, where they were kind of giving you the CNN, the 411 on what was going on in the streets from the streets perspective. Because if you were like watching the news in the early mid 80s about what was going on, like if you lived in the hood watching the news in the 80s, it was like crack, AIDS, drugs, the crime rate shooting up through the roof, poverty, gentrification, the destruction of, the devaluation of predominantly black populated neighborhoods. I say black populated because when you say black neighborhoods, you think, no, unfortunately, some of the black neighborhoods in America in generations past were really black owned. The majority of folks living in black neighborhoods back in the day were black folk. They owned their properties. They had businesses. So, there was a business interest, an ownership interest in that particular area, on that land in the area. But a lot of black neighborhoods that we live in nowadays are just predominantly black populated, occupied. We know that a lot of the property owners, the business owners that are in this area, they ain't us. They failing. They failing the brown paper bag test. They ain't passing it. They failing it, and exploiting our people for profit. Another way we're exploited for profit. So it's just like, I want us to see hip hop as an example of not only what's wrong with the black community, what's wrong with the melanated indigenous communities, not only in America but around the planet, but ways that we can solve those problems and come together and be the solution that we need to see in terms of taking back the power that we own, that's really ours, in terms of not only our cultural expression, but also our economic empowerment, our economic position on the planet. Because I'm telling you, ain't none of this shit working without black folk, without our people putting in the work. That's bleeping facts. I'm trying to keep it clean for y'all. But so, you know, that's just one of my very messages and tools and gems that I'll be dropping throughout this series, just to kind of tie in why I just be running off at the mouth about certain stuff that I like to run off at the mouth about when I'm doing this. I'm not just running my mouth off for no reason. Hope y'all can understand that. But manhood and hip hop. So back to reality rap in the 80s. You know, it was, you know, because when you were watching the news, you know, living in the hood in the 80s, you were hearing a lot of death and despair and destruction. Not saying it wasn't happening, but it was just like, again, the media. That's why hip hop is so important, because it's a media source as well. Not just music, but media as well. Hip hop is media. And brothers was like, okay, well, we know that this thing called hip hop is really becoming a thing. It's like becoming infectious and taking over the country, and you know, it's coming out of New York, and it's like really popping, and people are going to parties, and DJs are spinning records, and people are dancing and having DJing and battle rap and battle dance competitions. Like, that sounds like something that's real cool. Why don't we try and do something like that? You know, it's amazing how, you know, hip hop went viral way before the internet was a thing. But it was just infectious. So, you know, as a way of saying, well, we're tired of the news always telling the narrative about what's going on in our hood, or only telling part of the story, telling part of the truth. You know, we're going to fill y'all in on what's really going on. For real. And, you know, it was like giving you the news report, but from our twisted ghetto point of view, kind of quote a line from Jay-Z, as far as what's really going on. They telling you that, you know, the crime rate's growing up, but they didn't tell you that they was moving these guns and drugs into our community. They didn't tell you that none of the boats or the planes that, you know, was transporting these contraband and firearms into our communities. We don't own that. You know what I'm saying? We're barely able to pay the rent in these little, you know, roach motels, rat motels in the projects. We're barely able to make rent in tenement housing. But now we got the money to bring in, you know, all kinds of kilos of narcotics and you know, millions of dollars, billions of dollars worth of artillery. All of a sudden, you find that in our streets, and now the police show up. Get the bleep out of here, right? So that was the thing. It was counterintelligence. That's what reality rap was. It was counterintelligence, really, over beats and rhymes. You know what I'm saying? So what happened was, and this was, like I said, this was becoming a trend, like towards the mid '80s, late '80s, starting in the East Coast with the likes of like KRS-One. Actually, no. I mean, correction. You could say it was kind of before then too. Grandmaster. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Melly Mel and the. Oh man. I know my OG is going to kill me for this. But I know it was Melly Mel with The Message. And that was like one of the first examples of like that reality rap that we're talking about. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. So it wasn't even just information, but it was also injecting perspective and personality. Like, this is what's going on, and this is how I feel about it. This bleep needs to stop right now. You know what I'm saying? But I wanted to put it in a form of entertainment so it would catch on. So maybe if I'm not just preaching from a soapbox or a pulpit, and I'm, giving you some rhythm, giving you some funk, giving you some bounce, giving you some flow. It's like, oh, there's a message. That's the spoonful of sugar with the medicine, so to speak. It's a terrible reference, but turbinado sugar. And the medicine's like, elderberry. You know what I'm saying? So, that's how we keeping it organic and healthy here in the conversation, in the language. Yeah. Facts, cuz, facts. So, there was war on the black community. It still is war on the black community, but we were using hip hop as a media source of counterintelligence to make it plain. And they wanted to censor, if not outright ban the art form. Thank you, Miss Tipper and Al Gore, with the parental advisory labels and everything like that, because it wasn't because of the language. They'll tell you it's the language. Mind you, if you had to, dodge police, stray bullets, dead bodies, empty crack vials, just for your kids to go back and forth to school on a daily basis, you're going to feel some type of way. You're not going to be talking nice and eloquent and articulate. It's going to be bleepity bleep. This is bleeped up. You know what I'm saying? That's the energy. And, folks just ignorant. So, they ain't got no, and they ain't got no proper way of articulating that the demise of, the rise of drugs and guns in the black community is causing our... No, this bleep is bleeped up. That's the energy. So they're like, well, the language is a little harsh. Well, the conditions are more harsh than the language. Why don't you clean up our communities if you want us to clean up our music? You know what I'm saying? That was reality rap. So again, I'm giving y'all some background as to where I'm going with the subject of manhood and rap. And that's why it was so important to have strong-minded, strong backbone brothers representing at the forefront of the culture, because when you have your Tupacs, when you have your KRS-Ones, when you have your Rakims and Public Enemies and X-Clans, your Ice Cubes, what I'm saying, your NWAs, giving you that raw, uncensored, real life, in real time, message that you need to hear. When they're at the forefront, folks are ready to organize. Folks are ready to educate, strengthen the mind. The spirit of Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey was ever so present in this era of hip hop. I would like to say. Some would say Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X, they was spitters. Muhammad Ali, they could spit bars. Now maybe they wasn't in the booth with a track on it. Hi. Thank you so much for tuning in. Special shout out to Cinnamon, you know who you is. So we needed brothers with strong backbones and strong minds at the forefront of our culture. I mean, that's who created the culture. That was the energy behind, woven in the essence and the foundation of hip hop. So that was the positive example of manhood we were seeing in hip hop, and that spurred and incited change. That incited folks in LA to riot after the Rodney King verdict. That incited folks to, I think I remember hearing Ninth Wonder saying that when Public Enemy dropped Fight the Power in '89, the student enrollment rate in historic black colleges and universities, was it was a significant spike in enrollment. Brothers and sisters wanted to arm themselves with knowledge and information in order to, fight back against the system of racism and oppression in America and around the planet. And hip hop was a conduit for that. It was an impetus. So, what happened was that once, the hip hop industry started to realize that the art form was being used as a weapon against their cause, well, first they thought was, well, we need to shut it down. But I'm sure the record label industries was telling you, this is why you don't want to do that. It's way too many sales. It's way too much money circulating. This is a cash cow. You want to shut that down? You want to actually, get in the way of the economic stimulus. No, what you want to do is you just want to change the vibration. That's all. So instead of, giving space and holding space for, MCs who had a message, who had heart, saying it with their chest, letting you know exactly what it is and not what it could be or what it might be or what they thought it was or whatever, they offered the space. And, what they did was they got the artists who were already on to start switching up. And then the ones who came in after them was like, nope, if you want to rhyme, we ain't checking for it. They would tell the artist, well, the people don't want reality rap anymore. That's corny. You sound like a college professor or a preacher when you keep talking about the issues plaguing the black community. Niggas want to have fun. They want to party. They want to chase ass and skirts and smoke weed and do drugs and get drunk and... Which, I'm saying, that it wasn't not true. The thing about it was like, there's a balance. We want to enjoy life, have fun, be in a good space with our families, live, enjoy the finer things in life, enjoy a better quality of life. At the same time, we understand that we have a ways to go to get there because the conditions that we're facing aren't really conducive to that. So that's what the strong brothers were saying. So these young boys that they were signing, and that was another thing about why they were signing artists so young, because even like NWA and BDP and I know y'all can think of like other examples, but a lot of prominent, like usually when a record label signs an artist, they usually look for artists or groups that are at or under a certain age, because they know that these are older men running these labels that have had more life experience. They know, when you're in your 30s and 40s and 50s, you know what it's like to be 20, 18, 21. A 21-year-old doesn't know what it's like to be 50. A 50-year-old knows what it's like to be 21. And so these older white guys that own these record labels are playing on using any psychological, financial advantage. Then they knew that too. It was like, well, aren't you tired of living in the projects? Don't you want to drive a nice fancy car? Don't you want to move out into, a gated community and, wear the latest fashion and, shiny jewelry? Don't you want to, don't you want to be the man? And they're like, shit, hell yeah. Well, just sign right here. Meanwhile, you come to find out the bait and switch was, we gave you a career, we invested in you, but now you have to pay us back by giving us your soul, because that's what you signed away. So now you want to have integrity? Nope, we're going to expose you. We'll take everything that we gave. Whatever we gave, we could just take it right back. If you choose not to comply with the agenda. So they just like, all right, well, I know this ain't right. This ain't really even my message. This ain't my vibration. This ain't my frequency. But I know that, for me to maintain the position that I've established, I gotta play the game now. So that was just something that gradually wore down the vibration of resistance in hip hop. And it started to wear down the quality of men that were representing and speaking on hip hop. You went from men saying, don't you touch my black woman. That sister is a queen. She's a goddess. She is the closest thing to God on earth. You touch her, I'll kill you. You know what I'm saying? I'll stop at nothing to protect my black woman. To bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks. Lick on these bleeps and bleeps to bleeps. But I'm just quoting the lyrics, y'all. I'm quoting the lyrics. And that was getting a heavy airplay. Why? Because they were using the weapon, using the tool as a weapon, using the art form, using the form of expression as a weapon to hypnotize your minds. And they're saying, devalue your women, sell and use drugs, trade away any foresight to a strong financial future for temporary gratification and satisfaction. Immerse yourself in drugs to give yourself a temporary escape from the harsh conditions of the environment that you're subject to and the traumas that you've been exposed to. That's a whole nother part of it. But hip hop was just another example, another tool in which we created with the intention of raising up and building us up, back up, and how the industry exploited the opportunity to just tear it all down. And if you've noticed over the existence of hip hop, it's been a conflict, constant struggle, conflict between good and evil, because you see artists that are, still using the platform to spread thoughtful, insightful, messages and speak wisdom, and then they're like the outliers compared to the numerous artists out there that are spitting garbage. But I noticed that even a lot of artists that are popular for content that's not necessarily the most becoming for this generation, ratchet, if you will. Even sometimes if you hear them in interviews or just off camera, off stage, when they get to take the mask off, they're aware. A lot of them are aware of what time it is, and they want to see better and do better. As a rapper, there's only so much they can do because they're focused, they're in their bag, they're in their lane, so to speak. So there's only so much that they can do, and they may not necessarily know who to link with, who to plug into, as far as the type of folks they can work with, band together with, to affect more positive change in our communities. Or they are, and you just don't know about it, because that's another thing. Some folks are pulling strings and making moves behind the scenes for two reasons. One, they don't want to suffer the same fate as Sam Cooke and many other artists, Jimi Hendrix, that have, and I don't even know if they was really talking about it in public, but as soon as word gets out, it's like now there's a target painted on their back. So they don't want to suffer those same fate where if they start putting in work in the community, now they have a target on their back, and or the resources that they have access to and the influence that they have get snatched from them, and now they're like in a position of, powerlessness. There's one, and then two, what's the other reason? It just doesn't get put out there. Sometimes they don't want it to be known, at least not yet, because, if their plans get exposed, then, there's more opposition to try to sabotage what they got going on. And then two, mainstream media is not going to use that platform to transmit images and examples of brothers putting in work with our own here or around the diaspora, or on the continent, to better our community. I remember, I think it was like 10 years ago, 10 years ago, I had read about somewhere very obscure, about 50 Cent, out in Africa, helping to, I think he was doing some work in the community to either help build up some places or clean up some of the water, the resources there. I know Jay-Z had, he had donated or actually helped to, help set up a cleaner water, infrastructure for cleaner water for different areas in Africa. So, folks will be out there doing work, but you might not know about it because, again, there's a plan, there's a purpose in place, and the less people that know about it, the easier it is to carry out those plans until things come into full fruition. And then, of course, again, we don't rely on the media. It would be foolish to rely on the media, to expect the media to publish MCs and artists doing good deeds and being those positive examples of manhood that we need in hip-hop. And what's interesting? I may have to come back and revisit the subject of womanhood in hip-hop, too, because that's a very important, essential, vital, and sometimes overlooked aspect as well. Women and the sisters. Because I think that's another element that's a bit of a wild card or X factor. I don't say wild card, but an X factor in terms of, the cultural expression of hip hop being a tool to restore order and power to, you know, our communities of indigenous brothers and sisters. So that might, I don't know, maybe it'll be the next episode. Certainly something definitely worth talking about. I might have to do some research, and I'm gonna drop these episodes. Y'all feedback is gonna help me to, know where to continue to, talk about, research, and bring certain things to light, bring forth. I appreciate those who have been tuning in on Instagram Live and giving me feedback as well, because this is the conversation we're gonna talk about. So, we started out with reality rap, consciousness in hip hop, to gangster. The start of gangster rap, and basically taking that energy. It was almost like a wrestler move where they used the momentum of someone charging against them, like somebody's coming at you full speed, and all you do is just, calmly and collectively, know the strategy, the techniques to use their momentum against them. It's like, oh, you gonna run against me? Okay, I'm gonna brush to the side and just trip you so you fall, and then I'm gonna just beat your ass. That's what they did when we was charging against the system with our reality and conscious rap. And they said, okay, y'all want to go full steam ahead? Okay, well, y'all gonna rap, but instead of the message of hip hop talking about the ills of society in order to bring awareness, we're going to continue to keep things in that small loop. Instead of actually bringing awareness to it, we're going to glorify it. Like it's a movie. And that the movies also played a part into it, because that was the visual aspect of what gangster rap was. Gangster rap was when reality rap turned into glorification. Gangster rap is the glorification of the underworld criminal element that was being exposed in reality rap. Instead of communicating it for the sake of our awareness so that we can grow and evolve, and having that moment of accountability, it was like, no, it's okay. Stay right there. Keep talking about the drugs. Keep talking about guns. Keep talking about the murder rate. Because when you the baddest dude walking the block, there's power in that. Folks fear you. They respect you because they know, you know what I mean? Somebody look at you wrong, you quick to empty the clip, so on and so forth. Or you done sold the most drugs, or you done ran through the most women, you know what I'm saying? You got the most wealth. You got the biggest, strongest team, so to speak. It's not all bad. But the thing about it is, the glorification is what then lowers the vibration, and then also sends the wrong message to those, growing up. That's why it's like the rappers that are, popular today, most of them are in their mid-20s, some early 30s, some actually like closer to 40, believe it or not. But, ranging from, very late teens to through their 20s. The majority of them are. So what happens is they were born in the mid-90s, a lot of them, mid to late 90s. And what kind of music was out then? You know what I'm saying? Dr. Dre, Aftermath, after he went, after he broke from, Death Row, Death Row leading the Aftermath. You had Biggie, Tupac, that the beef was still, it was at its peak of intensity. You had who else? Bone Thugs and Harmony. So it was like, gangster rap. You know what I'm saying? Now, those artists were very talented, legendary, and there was still some elements of, public service announcement, public service, social commentary, and some consciousness interwoven. But the stuff that was getting pumped on the radio was, kill a nigga, fuck a bitch. I do drugs, I sell drugs, I get money. You know what I'm saying? I'm driving around in the newest, latest. I'm rocking this, like Kanye would say, I got this ain't out yet on, you know what I'm saying? I got the newest, latest You know what I'm saying? So that was, the highlight. That was the flavor around those times. So that's why it's like you take that, and then you're born into that element, and then you just see it just progressively getting worse in terms of that energy being amplified through the music to a point where, it's the level of ignorance with it is just out of control. You know what I'm saying? We're so embarrassed to hear what these young boys and girls are saying on the microphone, but it's like, I mean, where were we at as parents to counsel them? We was just playing this stuff loud as I don't know what while they was sitting in the car seat when they was little, and now that we was teaching them that was okay, by not telling them that it wasn't okay, or at least giving them context and saying, this was where we was at the time, but we've had to learn and grow, and we've had to grow up since then. Hip hop has had to grow up, and look at itself in the mirror and say, hey, I know this is how we felt back then, but this is where we need to change. This is where we need to grow and evolve. So that's why manhood in hip hop is so important, because men are the backbone. They're the head of the household. They're our fathers. You know what I'm saying? And if our fathers are acting a fool, if we're out chasing skirts, we out all hours of the night in the streets, in the clubs, running around in the streets, then we're not raising our children. We're not protecting our women. Now they out in the streets. And then guess what? Then the kids out in the streets. And that's what you're hearing in the music. Hip hop is a very much a direct reflection of who we are as a people and where we are as a community. And it's not all bad, but it ain't all good either. We'd be lying and perpetrating and faking the funk if we was to sit here and say there's, we're perfectly fine with hip hop where it is, and what we're doing with it. I said a mouthful. So, I know, there could be more discussed as far as like the graphic images. I'm sure you've seen it enough, and a lot of this ratchetness. I just really wanted to touch on the difference between, examples of positive manhood in hip hop and the difference between negative examples in hip hop. And, when you have more brothers step up to speak on what we need to do through the music and as a community, then, we're going to be okay. We're going to, hip hop needs that accountability. When we have that accountability factor, whether the artists, whether the entrepreneurs investing in hip hop culture and art form and expression are stepping up to say, this is what we need. In fact, we're enforcing a new standard in order for us to restore order to what we've created. Until we get to that consistently across the board, where it's like we're not playing any games anymore. Until we demand respect from ourselves and each other in this nation, in this community, in this world of hip hop, in the melanated community in general at large, until we demand that type of respect for ourselves, from ourselves, then we're going to continue to be disrespected. And we're going to continue to be exploited and be taken for granted and taken for light, taken for jokes, because we keep fucking playing with them. My man Ruffmic, man, he rest in peace. One of his lines, he said, "This is war and not a game, but we treating it like a scrimmage. Like this is practice." Now, with each other, that's one thing, but when we go out in society and we're reacting and responding to what's going on, brothers getting shot down like dogs in the streets. Hey, you want to complain about the police? That's fine. They responsible too. Rest in peace, Breonna Taylor. Rest in peace, George Floyd. Rest in peace, Trayvon Martin. Rest in peace, Sean Bell. Rest in peace, Amadou Diallo. You know what I'm saying? Rest in peace, Sandra Bland. Deanna Jones. I forget the young girl name in Detroit. Her last name was Jones. but all the victims of Oscar Grant, fatalistic Mike Brown, fatalistic police brutality. You know, and it's so sad that a lot of them were like decent, working folks. You know what I'm saying? Another brother, Philandro Castile, was another brother that got shot in his apartment. Just minding his business. Somebody break into his shit and shoot him down. But a lot of decent folks getting treated like animals by these this trigger happy policing, to quote Marvin Gaye. Rest in peace to him. You know, and the manhood was even before hip hop. You know, it was grown men in R&B, in soul music, in funk. Marvin Gaye was one of those. Curtis Mayfield, Marvin Gaye were two of the most brilliant examples of contemporary, urban music, black music, where it was like, I'm going to use my influence to spread a message that the community needs to hear. You know what I'm saying? Not saying they were the only ones. Just saying that they were two of the brightest examples of that, which probably gave way to, and Bob Marley's another one as well, as far as gave way to, the brothers and sisters in the early eras of rap, also kind of taking on that same responsibility and using their platform and their influence to, try to wake up the people. Now we woke. So if we wanted you to wake up, now you're woke. What you gonna do? Activate yourself. Be active for positive change. You know what I'm saying? Be active. Activate your power. Activate your mind. Activate your mental power. Activate your body. Get moving. You know what I'm saying? And if you gotta exercise to stay fit, so that way you can raise your vibration and improve your circulation to raise your vibration, so be it. I'm doing my part. Actually, just hit the gym today. Feeling kind of tired. But no, seriously though. Train up. Train your mind, train your body. Train your spirit. Ground yourself and align yourself with divine intelligence. That's pretty much the message we need to hear more in our music. And shout out to the MCs that are already doing that have already, dedicated, a major significant part of their space and their influence, either directly through the music or outside of the music, using their influence as a conduit for positive change and impact in our community and for humanity. Seriously, because I feel like hip hop is powerful enough to save humanity from its own destruction. But we have to see that and want that in order for that to happen. So, that's pretty much kind of like the moral of the story there. But yeah, and I'd rather harp on that than to talk about the negative images, because we're very familiar with what we're seeing right now. That's what we're seeing. I mean, a lot of the popular artists and songs that are out right now is an example of the lack of manhood that we need in hip hop. A lot of somebody said, I think I read a meme or something, but this current state of hip hop or generation of hip hop, a lot of artists, the way you hear them rap or carry themselves, period, you could tell they ain't have a strong, positive example of a man at home to raise them and teach them right. Because either they on some ratchet or there's a lack of, peace. Thank you for joining my live. Just getting ready to wrap up my latest podcast episode, and the link is on my bio. But I wanted to thank you for tuning in. So I'll be posting that. I'll be posting this up shortly, and you'll be able to catch some of this as well on my Instagram. So that's cool. What was I gonna say? Yeah, we've seen enough of the garbage. You know what I'm saying? And we understand why that is, or how that came into place. Understanding where it came from and how we got to this point will help us to better understand and overstand what we need to do to get back to, flipping the vibration back, upright. Instead of the culture of hip hop standing on its head and the lower vibrations and frequencies being pushed to the top of the food chain, the top of the charts, the top of the airwaves, and we can flip it around to where as though it's standing upright, and the higher frequencies are the ones at the top of the food chain, the top of the airwaves, and the top of the hierarchy. You know what it takes? Because as artists, you have to have the courage to say the right things, even when it's not the popular things. And then as fans, as participators, as supporters, as followers of your favorite artists, it's your responsibility to hold your artists accountable. Now, let's say you can't individually go to that artist and say, you need to do this, you need to do that. But you know what you can do? If your favorite artists are spitting out garbage, if they're playing, if the music they're putting out, you can't play this in front of your children. There's not one song you can play that gives gives something, invest to your children. Is an investment into their well-being and development and their growth. If they're not giving you anything that can, develop better children, smarter children, to make better decisions, then stop buying. Well, I don't know. People are still buying CDs. Believe it or not, there's still millions, if not billions, of dollars in CD sales. Don't get it twisted. But stop buying their shit. Stop streaming it. Stop going to the concerts. I know they done opened up venues again because the pandemic. After the pandemic, basically stop giving these artists a platform to keep spewing out garbage. If you know they're spewing out garbage, because if you continue to support it, they're going to continue to put it out. So don't complain if that's, Like if I hear someone, like just having a conversation with someone, and there are, I don't want to say, if they're belly aching, complaining, stating their, if you got a problem with hip hop and what's popular, and with the popular artists and the popular songs and albums and artists in hip hop right now, if you got a problem with the majority of them, and then you play some music, like I'm in your car or we're at a venue somewhere, and then some of that music comes on and then you start dancing to it, or it's in your playlist in your car, well, you're more of a part of the problem than the solution, because you continue to support it. And and the easiest thing to do to remove something that you don't need in your life is to replace it with something that better serves your purpose. So that's what we got to do. We got to replace giving our attention to these garbage artists, these trash artists that are polluting the vibration of the culture, and support artists that are actually raising the frequencies, raising the vibration, elevating the culture. And representing the best of what hip-hop has to offer. We need to support them. They're not always easy to find. They're not going to be the ones that YouTube or Spotify or Apple Tunes or iTunes or whatever streaming platform of your choice is going to promote. You have to look for them sometimes. You know what I'm saying? They have Facebook pages. They have social media accounts. They have YouTube accounts. Just research, underground hip hop, conscious hip hop, old school hip hop, and you'd be amazed at what you can find, because there are numerous artists over the years, over the decades, that have given you great classic material with a message, with a vibration, with something that you can. It's just timeless music. The shit it ages well. It ages much better than the stuff that's pumping out through the airwaves now. Some of it's dope, some of it's cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying just because it's out now is it's automatically trash, but you kind of got to filter through. But as far as rappers that I would give a shout out that are doing their thing. J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Chance the Rapper, Joey Badass, Boosie. I know, y'all, listen. Boosie is a thoughtful, free-minded, outspoken. Now, he got some ratchet energy to him, too, but a lot of what he has to say is from his own mind, from his own heart, from his own perspective. That's someone who definitely thinks for themselves. Kevin Gates is like, I don't know. I think his interviews and anytime he's speaking and not rapping is probably you get more value and substance that from his actual raps. But I feel like 2 Chainz is an artist that has some substance to their work. Ludacris, another artist that has some substance. Just to name a few. I wish I could think of more. Joyner Lucas is another one, and I'm actually going to put out an episode where I review one of his projects that he released in recent years, because the subject matter on it is very thoughtful and very worth talking about. And that's another example of what it means to use positive manhood in hip hop, and it offers insight and perspective that's very valuable, not just for the art form, not just for the musical genre, but again for the audience that's consuming and subscribing to hip hop. J. Rue the Damager is an artist from the 90s that I can recall listening to that was a very much needed, very welcomed, much appreciated influence in my life, because listening to his lyrics, there was so much substance. Sometimes the flow wouldn't even always come together because he was so busy on dropping science and giving you much needed messages in the music that it would take away from the flow, but not like the flow was whack or corny. It was just unorthodox. It was just like, I'm gonna give you this information. Wu-Tang was another, example of, it was a nice balance of, streetwise, that street, the criminal element, but the knowledge and the science was there, and then just the dope production that the RZA of mathematics was giving you, and then the mythology behind the comic book kung fu, mythology just made it so infectious. Like that was genius. What them brothers put together. That's vision. That's sight beyond sight in terms of creative vision. Anytime you see brothers come together to, make something happen like that on that level, it's like, you just have to salute that, because that's global. You talk about global impact. You talk about positive manhood, just creative genius at work. When a strong-minded brother gets to exercise his creative genius and leave him to his devices and do that on his own terms, beautiful things happen, man. I'm telling you. So, peace. Thank you for joining. Just talking about examples of positive manhood in hip-hop and why that's so important. We're actually getting to wrap things up pretty shortly, so I'll be posting this on my YouTube channel shortly, and there will be a brief replay of this as well. So give thanks. A few folks that tuned in, popped in, hey, what you doing on your live? Okay. Or you're not twerking, you're not talking about relationships. Okay. I'm gonna move on to I ain't mad at y'all. It's okay. It's okay. When you got the time to when you have the time and the interest to, listen to something that's a little more substantial, that's fine. This is always gonna be here for you. But yeah. That's why it's so important to see that, and to see that, because you've seen examples of how that, but J. Rue the Damager was like one of those first examples. Dead Prez being another one. I just remember listening to them brothers' CDs, going to school, and just the energy, the vibration, and then just listening to their technique, their style, and their, expressions. Was much of an influence in terms of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to go about it. And that's why, my name is, what it is, the F.L.O, factual libations for overstanding. I know that's real heavy, that's real, like, deep, free your mind, conscious, what I'm saying? But hey, it's necessary, it serves a purpose. And, when it gets to the point that I have an extensive catalog, y'all gonna see. For those who have been supporting me over the years since day one, you already know what it is in terms of what I can do, or at least you have an idea, because what I have been doing in at the beginning stages of my career offered a lot of promise. I've taken a lot of time, even being behind the scenes, to really refine and master and perfect my techniques of expression, and also expanding my skill sets to not just writing the rhymes, but also producing and engineering and mastering the vibrations. So that way, if I can't afford to pay nobody else to slide me beats, to record my material in a professional studio, and then master it to a professional quality level, I can do that. And I know I'm not the only one that's probably going to need that type of service. So I want to also be able to do the same thing for other folks. Peace, Queen. Appreciate you for joining. So I'm just kind of paying it forward in terms of what I was influenced by in my upbringing, in my experience, in my journey in hip hop, and being able to share my own perspective and my take on that, and also do that in a way where as though it just kind of carries on that tradition. This is the standard. This is where the bar is set. If you want to meet it here, if you're here, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? There are people that'll take you where you are and accept you for that and embrace you for that. That's not a bad thing. Yes, and peace and blessings to you and your family and King. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm gonna be I'm almost done wrapping up this episode, but I'm gonna be airing this. And my link is on my bio for my YouTube channel, for my Xpressionz of Self podcast. So give thanks. I appreciate you for tuning in. And so I just wanted to share what I've, kind of what I've absorbed from my experience with hip hop, and then also project that through my work, to my audience, and let that be an example for the next generation. Because, I know J. Rue didn't know I was listening to his music. I know KRS-One, Dead Prez, Gangstar, they didn't know I was listening to their music. Or, countless others that was going to take that energy that they brought forth. And I like what they did, because oftentimes, the most thoughtful artists, had the dopest material. Like, the beats was on point. The hooks, they really knew the art. So it wasn't just, the message and the consciousness, but it was also skill in terms of the creative output as well. Because a lot of artists today, they kind of take it for granted in terms of having an artist and being able to make a living and eat off of their craft without really having to dedicate themselves to mastering it. With the technology and the resources available, you could be a novice amateur rapper and have $1 million studio and have a Grammy-winning engineer and a team of engineers and producers to make their music sound the quality, the quality of the presentation sound very professional, high quality. But you can listen to the lyrics and you could tell they're not as skilled at their craft as a lot of artists before them were, as far as being devoted and invested into the craft. Not just, giving the message, but also the craft itself, to make sure that they could earn the respect. Because it was like I guess the times were different. Because as an artist coming up in the 80s and the 90s, you had to earn the respect of the crowd. You had to be authentic, be original, be genuine, be fully invested, and be true to it, and really have something to offer as far as creativity wise and skill wise, to even have space on the platform. And that's what you got in the 80s and the 90s. Even if the energy of the vibration was gradually being lowered to more ignorant, more destructive content, the skill set and the devotion to the craft was consistent, until we got to a point where it was like, well, we really want to treat the people's minds and ears. Once we knew there was a new generation of a hip-hop audience that didn't know what was going on back in the day, then, the industry knew that they could get away with putting out a whole bunch of garbage, because, the ones that were absorbing the new latest and greatest most of them didn't have a reference point, or they ignored the reference point because they knew, well, if we just pump this on the radio every day, they're gonna have to like it. They don't have any other choice. They don't know where to look unless, outside sources or inside sources have, advised them on how to find higher elevation hip hop. Because we're not giving it to them. You got to find it elsewhere. And if you don't know where to find it, well, you're just stuck with what we have for you. So taking advantage of that lack of it. And that's another reason why the industry is so intent on signing these young artists and keep pumping out new and new music, the latest and greatest, because it's important to be in the know and to be up to date and current with the information of what's going on and current state of affairs. But if you're too consumed with what's going on with right now, it's easy for you to forget about it, just throw away, or not ever be aware or exposed to the historical foundations and the historical contributions to what's going on. Because what happened in the 90s and what happened in the 80s, it's very much relevant. It's very much tied into what we're experiencing today. Not just with the music, but with life, period. But hip-hop being, of course, another reflection of that. And the grown men in hip-hop will be the first to tell you that shit. So that's why I'm telling you right now. And on that note, we want to guess thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. We're gonna keep advancing the culture. We're gonna keep, giving you that high frequency conversation and perspective. That's my promise to you, and that's the purpose of this platform. And on that note, we want to give you love, and we say peace. We say blessings, hoteps. Notice how the fingers are together. Peace and unity. Not separation like warfare. This is what they tell you the peace sign is, but the true peace sign is unity, coming together. So I say peace. Y'all be well. Thank y'all for tuning in. Peace. This is the F.L.O. Express, Xpressionz itself.